You want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered. And this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't going to be that fun.
All right, you have made it. You have made it to Friday. You have made it to Friday's Finest. This is the way. This is the time that you've been waiting for. The weekend is almost here. You're kicking in for Friday. We've got playoff football this weekend. Everything is going. The only thing that can make it better is your weekly visit from myself, your lovely host of the Doug Collins Podcast. Glad you're here today. But also we have Chip Lake with us. We have James with us from Dallas, and we're all going to be talking about the things that we've all been seeing from this past week. Friday's Finest, as you know, is our trip around the world of the interesting, the not so interesting, and maybe just what we feel like talking about. But then that's what we do here on Friday's Finest, and we'll talk some politics as well. Crazy week again going on in the world. Donald Trump. We got to get into Iowa. Caucus. Chip and I've got to talk about that a little bit. This is as I shared on TV, and thank you for all the ones who texted with me while I was on Fox and on doing TV in New York this week. As I said on one of the things, they said the Iowa horse race. I said, well, there's only one problem is that the Iowa horse race is over. The horse died, and we're done. So this is where we're at with this. So we got New Hampshire coming up. A little bit of lookout. Congress. It's an insult to a dumpster fire at this point for what's going on in Congress to say that it is a dumpster fire, because they can't seem to do anything, and Republicans have frankly an unworkable majority, and that's just the way it is. So a lot of these things going on, but we also have to have our weekly moment of Swift. We have to have our Kelsey moment. We'll probably have a McAfee moment. But also, we got to figure out what these owners are doing, trying to find a football coach. And Chip and I also are very upset that we have not got our call from Arthur Blank yet to interview for the Atlanta Falcons coaching job, because everybody else has seemed to get a call. We haven't got ours yet. So that's what it's like here after the break on Friday's Finest. Hey, folks, when you look out and you see the country and just the disarray it is, you see the Biden administration, you see the wholesale prices have just went through the roof again. Inflation is tearing us up. If you have your finances all impinged in just a few areas, if you're just in stocks and bonds and you're not diversified, I got some news for you. You need a navigator. You need somebody to help you get to where you need to go with those finances. And I can't think of anybody better to do that than my friends at Legacy Precious Metals. You need precious metals in that portfolio. You need gold and silver. And Legacy Precious Metals, the folks there, they're the navigators. They know how to deal with tough times. They know and how to look ahead and take your personal situation and make it something that can be workable for you in the long term, because that's, at the end of the day, that's the one you're most concerned about. You need to make sure that your personal finances and your retirement are secure. You need folks like Legacy Precious Metals helping you in that. They will take the time to learn you. They'll learn your finances. They'll learn where your investment goals are, and they'll help you get there. And metals and gold right now, in this kind of crazy inflation, in this kind of crazy economy with the Biden's economy, is just, you need that help. And Legacy Precious Metals is the one to do that. So give Legacy Precious Metals a call, 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or you can always visit them online at legacypminvestments.com, and you can download their free investor's guide. Legacy Precious Metals, they're the ones you need. They're the navigators to help you through these turbulent times.
Hey, everybody, it's MyPillow's 20th year anniversary, and over 80 million MyPillows have been sold. Mike Lindell and MyPillow wants to thank each of you and every one of you for giving you the lowest price in history on their MyPillows. You will receive a queen-size MyPillow for $19.98. Regular price is $69.98, and just $10 more for a king size. You will receive deep discounts on all MyPillow products, such as bed sheets, mattress toppers, pet beds, mattresses, my slippers, and so much more. This is a time to try out something other than the amazing products that you've had your eye on. Go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast square, and use the promo Collins, Collins, to receive this amazing offer on the queen size MyPillow for $19.98, or call 800-986-3994. This offer comes with a 10-year warranty and 60-day money-back guarantee. It's time to start getting the quality sleep you deserve. You know how I know that? Because I sleep on a MyPillow every night. Go to MyPillow.com and use promo code Collins, COLLINS, or call 800-986-3994 today. All right. Folks, we're here now. We got it all together. Chip joining me from wonderful, sunny Georgia. I mean, we're taping this, and it's been like 20 degrees. We're supposed to get down, Chip, to 17 or something like that this weekend.
Yeah, and I mean, we get a warm-up today, Doug. I mean, we woke up, and it was I think when I went to go get my Diet Coke and get my wife a coffee this morning, the car said it was, I think 17 degrees. It was 11 degrees 2 nights ago. We get one day of a warm up and then it comes back. So in any event, I feel like I'm in Kansas City and Buffalo in playoff time.
It's exactly. Well, I was in New York this week and I got some good old fashioned Georgia snow, and Chip knows what I mean by Georgia snow. It was some snow and mainly slush. So there we go. And just made things nasty. And of course, the man, the myth, the legend behind the scene. It is our Dallas Texan by way of New Jersey. It is James is in the house. James, you've been a little nippy out there in Dallas this week, haven't you?
Oh, man, it's weird because I thought I left New Jersey 2 weeks ago, but it turns out I did not, because Texas has been 17 degrees, 14 degrees, 15 degrees. I have to turn my faucets on so our stuff doesn't crack. I don't like this. I didn't move here so it could be 14 degrees when I wake up in the morning. I moved here because it would be 40 at minimum. But no.
I think you missed the travel brochures. That was about like the Atlanta 96 Olympic Committee saying the average temperature in Atlanta during the summer in August is 84 degrees. Yeah, that was the rest of the world found out that's what we call sweetheart. That's just a little bit of Southern expression around here.
It's honestly, Doug, I got to tell you though, sometimes it's kind of refreshing when you go outside and your whole body turns to ice. But I did feel like New Jersey weather because I was surrounded. The thing is that's weird, and I don't know how it is in Georgia, but like everything really does shut down here when there's a quarter of an inch of snow, and that's still, no matter how many times I live with it, it's still weird to me. That the roads are shut down, nobody opens, there's no ice, no salt to clear the ice. Nobody understands what's going on.
It's worse here. Everything shuts down when it's a 30% chance in the forecast.
There you go.
Right.
I don't get it. Last week, Chip can attest to this. Last week, there was supposed to be heavy rain. Last week, there's just heavy rain. That's what we're supposed to get, with a 1 or 2 on the possibility meter of severe weather. And there were schools in North Georgia that shut down the day before.
Can I ask you a question? When you guys were kids, I'm just going to assume you're the same age. I don't know, but but when you guys were kids,
sorry, Chip.
But in all seriousness, did school shut down for you if there was a thought of snow? No, it didn't.
Not the thought of snow. No, I mean I actually got stuck at school one time because of it.
Okay, so then it's just people being weird now. All right, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, it's our touchy-feely generation.
Well, yeah. Look, I went to North Cobb High School, and I remember my sophomore year. High school gets out at 3:15, and at 3 o'clock, they said, "Hey guys, we're going to delay." They went on the intercom and said, "We're going to delay dismissal because there's a tornado in the area." So we just delayed dismissal. Everybody got in the hallway. And then when we got out, the visiting stands in the football field were at the 50-yard line. So, I mean, we did have a tornado, but we didn't stop school. We just waited 30 minutes to get out.
Exactly.
Nowadays, they'll call you out the day before. This week, even this Tuesday, Doug, Cobb County schools and Mount Perrin Christian School, where my kids were closed because they were expecting maybe some flurries in the morning that we never got. So you can't make it up. It's what it's like to be a kid nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I remember my first. I've been in. I think actually physically been in or seen 4 tornadoes since I've lived in North Georgia, and Chip will test this to James. And that's why I love Friday's Finest. 20, 30 years ago, North Georgia, from basically about Atlanta north, if you want to take the 20 corridor maybe, but Cobb up through Gainesville, we were Tornado Alley. And we would get, Chip, we had 3 or 4 a year, easy. And big tornadoes. We're not talking. Yeah. And up in our part of the world, James, it's not like out where you're at now, where you can see them coming for 30 miles. You don't see them coming here. They're sort of into the clouds and everything else. And I was at school in the second grade. We got the second or third grade. Anyway, we got the tornado warning, and we had the old school where we had to push out windows. If you may not have ever seen those, James. But
listen, I'm old. I'm not that young. Jesus.
But the push out windows. So that was our air conditioning, because we didn't have air conditioning. And the drill was for a tornado. If you got a tornado warning, again, this goes back to the old science of pressurization. They said, well, you got to designate 2 kids to go open the windows before, like Chip said, we went and sat in the hallway. I was one of the kids that had to go push the windows out, and this tornado literally hit about 150 yards to the south, I guess, of our school. And I'm pushing the window. I couldn't get one open, and I finally got it out. And about that time, the pressure that was out there bust that window, and it blew up in my back. And I had chips of glass and everything in the back of my head. And I went out, and of course, they didn't call my mom and dad. Dad was a state trooper; he didn't care. But I was in the hallway and had chips of glass in my head. This is what we're
Doug, they designated 2 children. They could have said the teacher, but they designated 2 children.
The old days.
Oh my God. I'm just trying to picture now a teacher explaining to a parent that they had to designate a second grader to open a window during a tornado.
Yeah, pretty impressive, huh?
That's leading the news, Doug. And you think that was just part of living in Georgia.
In fairness, James, they try to open the window before the tornado. It just
technically, yeah, we were a little slow. I won't say anything about my class. We were a little bit on the learning curve side here.
Doug was on Hooked on Phonics. All right.
We had that back then.
You know what's funny? I was actually part of that because I couldn't figure out how to write the word bed when I was like in first grade. I just couldn't figure. I literally couldn't figure. I kept writing DEB. I couldn't do it. I swear to God. And then they put me on that stupid Hooked on Phonics, and I think I hated being in that class so much that I learned to read. I can't even explain to you.
Okay, here's the next bestseller on the New York Times top 100 books. James says, I hated Hooked on Phonics so bad I forced myself to read.
It was the class. Doug, I can't stress to you, I felt so bad for this teacher because he was trying, I remember him trying to explain, he goes, the word bed looks like a bed. B, pillow. E.
Oh my God, I think he needed it as well.
E, D is the end of the bed. 2 posts. And I was like, shut up, I don't understand this. I got to tell you, because
that's assuming you had a bed with post on it.
That's right, exactly. I didn't know what that was. I was like, what are you talking about? I don't know what this means. I swear to God, it was so, because like it took me out of class. They only took you out of class for like 20 minutes because they would rotate because there was many stupid children. But I was in the select group where they kept me for a little extra. And I remember being like, you know what? I don't want to be here. I miss my friends. I'm going to learn to read. Sure enough, next year I didn't get anywhere near those classes. Oh my God. I just told everybody who listens to this show what a moron I was as a child. But that's
you're like that Far Side commercial with Larson. The Far Side commercial had the Midvale School for the Gifted, and had the kid leaning against the door, pushing his head pull.
Oh my God. Oh man.
God, Chip, we could just let James go all day today. This is pretty good.
I don't think we should. I don't think we should get in trouble like that.
Yeah, my 4th grade teacher, Miss Cave, she was a wonderful lady, godly woman. The first day of class, she gave me a handwriting book. It didn't help. If you see my handwriting now, it didn't help.
She looked you dead in the eyes, slapped it on the table, and was like, you're going to learn.
Yeah, she did. She said, you got to learn how to write.
Oh man,
my chicken scratching was not there. Yeah, it is amazing though to go back through, and see the differences. And I made this point, I think, James, before, and Chip on the podcast. We talk about gun control, we talk about all this stuff that people say, oh, this is terrible. Got gun. I mean, Chip, I don't know about North Cobb, y'all a little bit. We're up in the sticks. Y'all weren't in the sticks as much. But we had kids. I mean, when I was going to high school, legitimately, we had kids in pickup trucks with deer rifles in the truck.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, because we went hunting.
Absolutely, and back then, I mean, I think the only law was the guns had to be visible from the rack,
exactly,
right behind your headrest, and so
and I mean, y'all can see this knife right here. This is not. I mean, it's just, for me, it's just an old pocket knife. I mean, but it's a good, 4.5, 5 inches. It's a common pocket knife you carried in high school.
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't. That's something nowadays. I mean. You get sent. I mean, you get charged with that stuff. I had a niece who we had to deal with because her boyfriend left a pocket knife, put it in her car. It's nutty kind of stuff. But anyway, moving on here. Chip, let's talk some politics right quick, though, before we get into some good stuff. Look, I think you and I both have said we knew Trump was going to win Iowa. I mean, it was in the bag. It was going to happen. Two things jumped out at me, though. Number one, the making the 51%, which I thought was pretty impressive. Number two, the complete meltdown of DeSantis in Iowa. I mean, it wasn't even. I mean, I thought he may win a few counties. I thought there'd be at least something hanging out. The complete meltdown of never back down in the DeSantis campaign, spending $80 million or whatever it was in Iowa, him going to 99 counties. Haley we'll get to in a few minutes. She's a special issue, but that one, those two things jumped out at me. Probably, if I had to rank them, it would be the DeSantis complete meltdown.
Well, look, I mean, where do you start? I mean, it kind of reminds you of Jeb in 2014, 2015. I mean, it just it never caught fire, and the reason that it never did, one of the reasons it never did, I don't think had anything to do with Nikki Haley. It was just how well Donald Trump was doing. And whether you like Donald Trump or hate Donald Trump or are indifferent toward Donald Trump, you have to admire what is likely going to be the greatest comeback. I mean, let's think about where this guy was.
Yep.
I mean, at a very minimum, just as a political scientist, somebody looking at this and being objective about it, I mean, what does he have? 90 felony indictments?
91.
91. He leaves on the heels of the what happened on January 6th and to come back and run that margin. We talked last week. The largest margin of victory in the Iowa caucuses prior to Monday was 13 points, and it was Bob Dole.
Yep.
I mean, Trump won by 30 plus points. And so, I mean, not only was that incredible, but if you look what's happening right now in New Hampshire, I mean, Chris Sununu, the governor of New Hampshire, was all over cable television a little more than a week ago saying if Chris Christie drops out of New Hampshire, he's the only thing standing in the way of Nikki Haley winning New Hampshire. And Chris Christie steps out of the way and Donald Trump increases his lead in New Hampshire.
It is. And then it came up, and I would love to do this. And you may know this. I was asked this on an interview yesterday, Chip. It was American Research Group or something like that came out with this. I mean, you talk about out of the blue poll, a 600-person sample in New Hampshire that showed a 40-40 tie. Complete outlier. I mean, nowhere. And it's like, I told the reporter, I said, well, number one, I want to know who funded that. I want to know who funded that poll. I want to know what the breakdown. And if they're not showing their crosstabs, I don't care. Because I think this was a Sununu or Haley team plant. Because the very later that afternoon, I think it was the Boston Globe or something, came out and Trump was still up 10, 12 points. Interestingly enough, and we've had our friend John McLaughlin here on the show before, and I see Jim all the time as well. And we've talked about the anomalies of polls and how they work. But I will have to say the Iowa polls was dead on. They and this is interesting because you're polling people, especially with Iowa, that is such a special case. I mean, because because a lot of the people you're going to poll will tell you they may go to caucus, but they've never been to caucus in their life. So it reflected, I think, very interestingly enough, the whole of Iowa when you looked at it. But yeah, you're right. The comeback story here is just is pretty phenomenal. Speaking of this comeback story, we've touched on this before, but I got to touch on this again because this gets worse. Fonnie Willis, Nathan Wade, this issue in Georgia, and again, all the media, and I get it, they want to focus on the salacial he, she thing with the divorce and with going on the trips and everything, which is bad. And it will, I think the judge is very close probably to having a real issue with her because I can't wait for that hearing because it will be televised. So and I told somebody else, the lawyer that made these accusations in that motion put their career on the line.
Oh,
because if she don't have the receipts, so to speak, then she is gone from being a lawyer. She's done. So you got to know that there's something coming. And the reason I seem to know that, Chip, also is Fonnie Willis' office, who has been very quick to publicize any what they perceived was attack.
Oh, yeah.
Went deathly silent. And then she goes to a church last weekend and claims racism.
Of course.
And the black female. I mean, give me a break. It's terrible. What do you see in that?
Well, I mean, what we see is exactly what's going on. I mean, the silence is deafening coming from Fonnie Willis's office. And what tells me that this has legs is that the mainstream media is starting to turn on her. Yep. The Atlanta Journal starting to turn on her. The network stations have the Atlanta network stations and the national affiliates have filed a lawsuit in Cobb Superior Court to unseal the divorce records of Nathan Wade. I mean, it's you saw Patricia Murphy write an op-ed saying, Fonnie Willis, what were you thinking? I mean, you don't see that very often. And when she starts leaving, when she starts losing her allies on the left, she's in trouble. And I got to say, I'm surprised by this. I mean, you and I have known of Fonnie Willis for a long, long time, and her reputation, even before any of this Trump stuff, was always she's tough as nails and she's smart. This was dumb. It was very sloppy.
Well, when she started to get, I think really the change for Fonnie Willis to me was when she decided to get into politics, because I've heard from a lot of folks, Chip, you have too, that some of the, and I'm just going to leave this very generic because you always have conversations, and I'm just saying that let me say that there's the perception of a lot of Atlanta Republican attorneys, okay, that when she was running for DA, she made a lot of overtures to them that she was different. And I've heard from them, again, I wasn't there, so this is what they've told me, that, we were hoodwinked. We were lied to, that she came and said, because Paul Johnson was so bad that, I'll be better. We're going to get this thing straight. And she turned out to be, not. I've also been emphasizing the fact, and I think it needs to get more play, is that the divorce, the whole, paying him, one is and this is easy to prove. Fulton County has it in their regulations that they're supposed to approve a special prosecutor. And undoubtedly they haven't in this case, because that would be the first thing even if I was a junior DA flunky, I could just, leak that. Or if I was Fulton County government, I could leak the document that said, hey, yeah, we approve this. Nobody's done that. And so which tells me that there's probably a problem there. Number two, the bigger one for me is, and this is where it's going to get interesting for the Biden White House. The Biden White House has always said they knew nothing about, they were not helping, they were not involved in these prosecutions of Donald Trump. I'm sorry, you have Nathan Wade at the White House 2 times in 22 for 8 hours, which he charged for. He made his own receipt on this thing and was at the Biden White House. Now, I'm not saying he was sitting in the Oval Office trying to wake Joe up, but somebody in that administration knew what was going on down here, and they were either getting briefed or they were trying to give him information, one or the other. Because we also know that the January 6th committee now, and I cannot believe, you and I both worked in Congress. You worked there and I served there. I cannot believe they were allowed to destroy documents from that committee. It's just unfathomable to me that they would let that do. But we do know that they gave depositional testimony away that they had recovered to Jack Smith and to now Fonnie Willis. We knew this a few weeks, a couple of months ago. So now the connecting point is Nathan Wade being in D.C.
Yeah.
I see this as the Democrats got a problem here.
Well, they got a huge problem, and Nathan Wade, when you now finally, I mean, I don't know why it took so long, but now you finally have members of the news media digging into some of Nathan Wade's cases before this. He's never tried a felony case in a courtroom,
right?
Ever. And now he's making, I think he's billed $5,600,000 from this case, which is not all that surprising given how big of a case he is. But he's taking trips to Cancun or wherever it was, with the district attorney who's not making as much money, who he has a relationship with.
Yeah,
It
stinks.
But it's going to be interesting to see what the judge does, Doug, because this judge is relatively new, relatively young, but he's smart and he's even keeled. But you can tell he's been trying to kind of tramp down as much drama as controversy as he can, and to my knowledge, I don't believe a hearing has been scheduled.
No, they haven't yet. They haven't.
Yeah, I wonder if that's because there's possibly discussions behind the scenes, maybe with the judge to try to maybe come up with the resolution on this before he has to do so in a public forum. That could be very embarrassing to the case, to the DA, and to the county.
Well, here's the problem. They can't just do it against this defendant either. It can't be just, okay, like they did with the Burt Jones case, which, by the way, for those who have forgotten here, and the media will never report this except when they have to, she was kicked off from investigating the current sitting lieutenant governor, Burt Jones, because she threw a fundraiser for his opponent. And McBurney, who is the senior judge in Fulton County, scolded her tremendously over that and said, you can't prosecute him. You can't be involved in investigating. And that case is still out with the prosecuting attorney's counsel with Scandalakis, and he don't know what to do with it. I mean, so it shows, number one, I don't think there's a huge case there, number one. Number two, it also shows the political nature of it. Look, this is going to get interesting. This judge has already told Fonnie Willis and the prosecutors, I don't see how you try this case. I don't see how you put these 15 people on here together and do this at one time. He's been very skeptical of that from minute one. And we don't have he's said everything from the size of the room to everything else. So I think this is going to be interesting to see. One thing I think we can all be assured of is I just don't see any way this goes off in March. There's no way that I see right now this trial taking place in March. It just is not because they've not even had these hearings, and you throw this bombshell in there, and if there becomes more with it, you're going to probably see some other defendants lock onto it. I mean, they're going to join in the in agreement with this and see. So again, lots going on there. So, and then I'm not even going to get into the abject stupidity of the fraud case in New York. I mean, that is just the Tisha James case. She should be impeached today. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've talked about it enough. We weren't going to talk about it, but you have the bank come in when it should have been case over. The judge, even who said there was fraud. I mean, remember, this is the damages at this point. The judge already said he committed fraud. How can that judge look at anybody in the face and say, yes, it's fraud, when the bank themselves came in there and said, we're good. We'd give him money again. We're good. Again, just terrible. So a lot going on in the political world. Look, I've said this all week. Chip, I'd love to get your thoughts before we turn to some fun stuff. And I said it in the opening, this is over. The primary season's over. I mean, we're going to go through the motions of New Hampshire this week. If Trump wins New Hampshire and Haley and DeSantis both don't drop out, there's a real problem. Okay, it's just because, and even if I said this before, even if she wins, God miracle comes down and she wins by 1 or 2%. Let's just say she does. She is at a dead end. She has no place to go. That was the one and done, because South Carolina, she's losing by 20-25. The Super Tuesday states, she's losing by far more than that. Nevada, no chance in Nevada. And DeSantis is polling at 5%, by the way.
I don't even think Nikki Haley made the ballot in Nevada.
I'm not even sure. So, I mean, you look at this kind of stuff and you say there's just not a path here, moving forward for her. And DeSantis, I guess he's just trying to save face. I mean, because after that just shellacking in Iowa that he took, to stay on with 5% in New Hampshire, it's going to be interesting. So, like I said, what's your thoughts going forward here for the next few weeks?
I mean, it'll be over in a couple weeks. I mean, at a very minimum, like you said, I mean, it very closely, very soon. I mean, if you're a donor, why would you give Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley money at this point in time, right? They're going to run out of money. And if you're Nikki Haley too, do you really want to go to South Carolina and get beat? I mean, it probably makes sense to get out, before then. And so, yeah, look, I think this is going to be wrapped up in a hurry, and then, and then it becomes, very quickly, very early in the year, probably as early as, in an open seat. Well, it's not really an open seat, even though Joe Biden's the incumbent is going to be. It feels like it is, though, doesn't it? I mean, we're gonna have the Democratic nominee and the Republican nominee by early February. I think it's a done deal.
I think so. Look, one of the things I want to get with you, and folks, this will be an extra bonus. We're going to have an episode, Chip, and I want to get Chip back on, and we're going to spend just a whole episode here in the next week or two. I'm hoping to get out, because Chip, and I want you to think about this. We're not going to dive into this. We're getting ready to head to football, but I'm viewing this, and I made this statement, and I got some pushback. I got some, you might be right. I'm viewing this now. This is almost a 2016 redo. Especially if Trump gets on message, hits the messages he's hitting right now, and Biden continues on the path he's on. And I say that for this reason, and I want to break this down in a full episode. 2016 Democrats all they had was Hillary Clinton and this broad message: Trump bad, Republicans terrible. Vote for us. We're the adults in the room. Don't start World War III. Elect us. Big picture, no real substantive, what we'll call meat and potatoes issues. Trump came in, talked about immigration. He talked about economy. He talked about an overreaching government. He talked about, went to the African-American vote and said, hey, what have you got to lose to vote for me? I mean, they've been treating you bad the whole time. A new, fresh voice, focused, and won. 2020, just both parties went off the rails. 2024 now, think about it. The only message you're hearing out of Joe Biden right now is the threat to democracy. That MAGA Republicans, anybody, by the way, they don't care if it's just Donald Trump, even if it was Nikki Haley or anybody, it's the extreme MAGA Republicans are going to take your votes away, put slavery back in action and everything else. Nothing about the voters. And here we have a Republican candidate who just won Iowa. Immigration, economy, people, the government's out to get you. Think about that one, because I want to come back and do an episode where we actually just get into that. Because, look, this is going to be the messaging, and we're going to hear a lot of it, because this is going to be over early. This is going to be one of the longest general election campaigns, if you think about it, we've ever seen. Because typically we don't even get to at best, you're getting the general election by May, June. This one you're going to see is almost 6 to 7 months out. So it's going to be interesting. All right, folks, let's turn in. James, I got a question for you. How bad was it in Big D this week? Did they at least lower the flags at Buc-ee's to half staff?
They shut down the Buc-ee's out of respect. I was going to ask you guys let me start like this. The Dallas Cowboys once again have proven to us, like they have every year, that they are just a really awesome regular season team that plays in an NFC East that isn't that tough. And the Eagles had a major collapse, and there was still an argument over who had the worst collapse. Think about this. The Eagles started out the season 10-1. They lost 5 of their last 6, right?
Yep.
And then they lost to Baker Mayfield in the playoffs, who, by the way, let's give that man a little bit of love, for God's sake.
Chan Gailey's boy, right guy right there.
I'm
Chan
so
Gailey's been
sick
crushing
of
him for a
nobody
year.
giving the Bucs credit for just playing better than the Eagles. Anyway. And yet, the argument was still, was the Eagles' collapse worse, or was the Dallas Cowboys losing in the playoffs worse? That's how important it is. Because Dallas was 12-4, or 12-5. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
12-5. And this was their year, like it was the year before, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that.
Yeah.
The whole entire city is losing its mind because they don't know. There are people punching TVs, which is normal. I get that emotionally. There are people probably driving into the storm that we had the other day, or whatever you want to call it, more of a squall. But I'm just saying people are losing their minds out here. Nobody's got any Dallas gear on. Nobody's doing anything. I'm sure every bar in the city was shut down because everyone's just drinking their sorrows away. I don't know what you do about this team.
Yeah.
There's no actual answer. There's no, we have to change the coach because they're not doing that. There's no, we have to change. You can't change the quarterback. You can't. You can say, you can argue all you want, but you have to think about how many quarterbacks there are. The Vikings lost Kirk Cousins this season, and I know we got lucky for about 2 games with Josh Dobbs, and I may have overreacted to him becoming the best quarterback of all time. However,
just a little bit.
But you saw what happened to the Vikings, who had a great defense, and without a quarterback, they couldn't win close games, and they literally couldn't throw the ball.
Yeah.
If they had Kirk Cousins, they might have won a couple more games. My point is, there aren't that many Dak Prescotts out there. He's your best option. You're not going to go find one.
Yeah. Scary part here, Chip. Let me get you a reaction on this, but I want to add this nugget in there. Reporting late last night that McCarthy is staying on for the 2024 season. How do you explain that to the Dallas fan base?
Gosh, I mean, where do you start? I mean, first and foremost, when you're comparing collapses, I still think the Eagles' collapse was greater, and I say it was greater just because it was over a period of 2 months, right? It was sustained, and Dallas had such a good regular season it almost jinxed them going into the postseason, and let me explain that. I mean, it's such a grind. The NFL is such a grind, much bigger grind than college football because you're playing 17 games. And so, there's not a team in the NFL that doesn't go through a period that is a little bit of a rough patch, maybe where things aren't syncing as well. Dallas never went through that with their home schedule. They dominated everybody at home. And so, I hate to agree with Mike McCarthy in part of his post-game press conference, but in his post-game press conference, he said something that was very true. He said, we just picked a very bad week to have a bad game. And I think that's what they did. And look, when you do so well in the regular season and then you struggle in the postseason, that's the worst type of anomaly to fix because, you make changes, and then, what are you going to do? Win more than 12 games in the regular season with the changes? And so, I think you gotta continue to, to chip away. Look, I was just as surprised as everybody. I mean, I was shocked watching that game. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And it was a total team collapse. It's not just like Dak had a bad game, like this happened in other years. I mean, the Dallas defense, Micah Parsons had 1 tackle on, this weekend. I mean, where was he? So, it was just, and by the way, I mean, all season we heard that Dan Quinn is going to be a head coach again in the NFL. Well, guess what? We're not hearing that anymore. Just a very bad.
What is that? What is the Dan Quinn thing? What is the love for Dan Quinn that I don't understand?
There's 3 people in Atlanta who's not getting interviewed for the Atlanta Falcons head coaching job: Doug Collins, Chip Lake, and Dan Quinn. So
can we talk about the more concerning issue from this game? Is that once again I have to worry about a Packers quarterback for another 10 years?
Yeah, Jordan Love played well.
What is this secret magic sauce that when you enter the Green Bay, all of a sudden you become one of the best players of all. I'm sick of it. I'm so sick of this.
Well, think about it though. Packers do something that no other team does, and it's a pattern now. So you can call it a pattern. It's 3 times. It's a pattern. Favre was ending his career. They brought in Aaron Rodgers, set him on the bench for 2 or 3 years. Favre moved on out. Still did well enough to train. Aaron Rodgers stepped in. Aaron Rodgers got toward the end of his career. They brought Jordan Love. They ticked everybody off, including Aaron Rodgers, what made Aaron Rodgers play better for a couple of years. They benefited from that, moved on, and Jordan Love is a good quarterback who got to sit there and learn and practice and learn and practice. I mean, folks, if you missed the comparison between his back leg throws to Aaron Rodgers, they look almost identical.
I don't want to have to give Green Bay credit for anything. I hate this organization. I hate that they play outside and pretend it's an advantage. I am so done with this football team. And now, if I have to hear one more time, well, everybody's 2 years or 3 years in. I know the Vikings are screwed. The Chicago Bears are young. Detroit's young. The Green Bay Packers are young. I was 2 years ago, I was certain that we were going to lock up this division for the next 3 years. We are going to be in last place for the next 5, at minimum. We're going to have to. I saw an article talking about trading Justin Jefferson. What the hell is happening right now?
Chip. We got to have an intervention here.
when I saw the score of the Dallas game, I had a full-on meltdown. Yeah, I sat at home and cried. So I knew it was over.
Chip, thank God this will be on tape, so next year we can go back and rewind this for James and say, James,
why are the Vikings 7-1?
I'm gonna turn this a little bit because Chip, you were saying it, and James said a little bit of it. Chip, you sort of alluded to it as well. I'm gonna make a comment that may tick a lot of folks around here in my part of the world. It's something we don't talk about in Atlanta. But Dallas football in Atlanta, at least in the last few years with Dallas, Atlanta actually has a almost 30-year history here. Atlanta baseball is the best regular season baseball team consistently over the past 30 years. And we have 2 world titles. Mm-hmm. 2.
Yeah.
We've won the East. What is it, Chip? 15, 16 times?
Yeah, something like that.
Some ungodly number. We have gotten bumped in the first round, the wild card round, more times than I care to imagine. We don't make it to the NLCS, but every other year it seems like. Chip, you hit on something that's interesting. What is it? And again, we had 4 Hall of Fame pitchers in the same pitching rotation.
Yeah,
what? I mean,
and baseball. I mean, you brought it up, Doug. I mean, it's so you make it. Anything can happen in baseball, right? Because it's a 4-game series, and you look at this new format that they've got for the postseason, and it doesn't seem to favor the teams that have the best teams that have the best records coming out because. They go all year playing a baseball game every day with a day off every 10 days, and then you give them 8 days off, and it's tough to get back into rhythm again. And, look, it's tough. The postseason's tough, and I think you brought it up. The Dallas Cowboys are now in the same spot that the Atlanta Braves are in. They do really well in the regular season, and, man, it's tough in the postseason. But what makes Dallas even crazier is Dallas hasn't played – I mean, they haven't played in a division championship game, I think, in 30 years. They haven't even made it that far. They don't even get out of the wild card.
Hey, at this point in time, Chip, the most interesting stat of the week that I've seen so far is that in the last 20 years or something like that, the Houston Texans have more playoff wins than the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, hey, on that note, don't ever doubt C.J. Stroud.
Oh, he tough.
Don't ever doubt C.J. Stroud.
No.
Is that going to be the most underrated game of the week or what? Because obviously we're all going to be excited for the Kansas City game. But let's not listen, the Ravens will probably pummel them. The Ravens have pummeled everyone this year. But there is a chance where we get a C.J. Stroud, Lamar Jackson shootout of a lifetime.
But remember, though, James, Baltimore has had Dallas-type problems in the postseason. And
that I agree with. That I'm not
saying. Look, I'm not going to take C.J. Stroud over Lamar Jackson.
This is more about Lamar Jackson than anything.
Yeah, I'm going to step out right here early. Give me Texans and the 9.5. I'll take it now.
The 9.5 I can live with, but
I would say, hey, look, I would take Texans almost pretty well straight up, but I definitely will take Texans and 9.5.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'd take them winning, but 9.5 is a big number.
Yeah.
You know what I'm worried about? I'm worried
more ice in Texas.
The Texans are not playing Joe Flacco, and I know he had a good run, and I know that the Browns played great. That's all season until that moment, and the Texans were all over Joe Flacco. They just blitzed him. I mean, I don't know if anyone didn't figure that out yet. But they just literally attacked Joe Flacco today. They were like,
he had no run, and his running game was he just didn't have a running game.
Yeah, no, I don't. And that's odd because they've been doing that all season at such a high level. But if I'm Lamar Jackson right now, this is my. I know he's going to win MVP most likely. I know it's still between him, Dak, and probably Josh Allen now. But this is his way of stamping it, even though it doesn't count as stamping it. You know what I'm saying? He has to just go in and make sure the Texans know that they're the number one seed.
Yeah,
that's his goal. If he goes to an AFC Championship game, then we can stop. The people will stop talking.
Yeah, here's the look at it because I want to talk. Since we're here, let's just go ahead and do this. Texans Ravens. I said I'll take Texans 9.5, or I'll just go Texas even money. I'll do. Chip, what do you think? Texas Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking the 9.5. I mean, it's it makes sense. I think it's going to be a game within a touchdown. I think Baltimore ends up winning, but it's hard. It's hard in the postseason not to take points over a
James.
touchdown.
Yeah, I'm taking the Ravens for sure.
All right, another 9.5 game that I'm going to also take as well. I'm going to take the Packers in 9.5. In fact, that's my dog of the week. That's my upset of the week right there. Green Bay taking out San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's same. I'm taking 2 9.5-point dogs because I know I'm going to win one of them. At most, I'm going to lose juice. So I'm taking Green Bay as well.
I would rather die than pick the Packers. So go Niners.
All right, we got Buccaneers Lions. This was Chip. I'll let y'all two go first because I got something to say about this one. Chip, what you got?
I'm taking the Lions. I mean, look, they got the monkey off the back. They got their first playoff win in 30 years. They're playing with house money now. It's a great story about the Bucks and Baker Mayfield, but give me the Lions -6.5, and they cover.
All right, James.
Speaking of house money, the Buccaneers got nothing they don't care. They have no fear. Baker Mayfield's coming in through almost 400 yards. Give me the Bucks.
Interesting. I'm gonna take on that one. I'm 6.5. I can't with the way Mayfield and that sort of it factor and Todd Bowles down there. I mean, I got to take the 6.5. I agree with you, Chip. I feel you. I think Detroit's my heartstring one to make it a little bit, but but I mean, there's too much. That's a trip up game to me. I think the Lions were expecting to have to play a better opponent than what they believe they're going to play. I think they could be the trip up game for them. They could be looking.
I put 2 underdogs in a row in the first 2 games, so I couldn't do it in the third game.
I understand that. All right, and then the game that is truly a 2-1 in pick'em, but also probably could be the best game of the weekend. Chiefs Bills. James, go first.
I saw something online. They said that wouldn't it be funny that the rule that Josh Allen and the Bills complained to get would be each team gets the ball in overtime.
Oh.
And if they were to get the ball first and then Patrick Mahomes scored and won. But it's in Buffalo right now?
Yeah, it's in Buffalo.
Yeah, give me Buffalo. I think that they're going to go. It's going to be them and the Ravens, and I think they might go to the Super Bowl this year. I think this is it.
Chip.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Bills. I mean, it's hard to fathom a statistic or I guess, statistic that I saw this week that this is Patrick Mahomes' first road playoff game ever. Like, he's never played a playoff game outside of Kansas City, and so I'm taking the Bills. Taylor Swift is going to have to freeze for 2 games in a row. But, Kyle Juszczyk's wife made her a big, thick jacket that was really puffy.
I need that jacket.
Through, and I'm taking the Bills.
Yeah, the funny thing is they say there's no hotel good enough probably for Taylor Swift in Buffalo, so she won't be staying, folks. Don't worry about it.
You see that the photo they used is the one of Hillary in that old apartment?
Oh, yeah, that was hilarious.
That's the funniest thing ever. I just can't. It makes me laugh every time.
I'm going to go. I agree with everything Chip just said, except and James. I agree with what he said, but I'm as our buddy on game day says, not so fast, my friends. I think the Chiefs have the Bills' number. Although I believe the Bills are playing well, I could easily see them winning this. But I'll take the 2.5 of the Chiefs on this one.
I think Doug just wants to see Taylor Swift at the Ravens game.
No. Speaking of, we got a few quick run around the horns here to do as well that I want to get to. One being the issue of quarterbacks, and not only quarterbacks, but also head coaches. Without going into depth, because we can talk about this more after some of this is played out. First question is this. Are Belichick sort of a lightning round here? Is Belichick, Harbaugh, and Vrabel all three coaching in the NFL next year? Chip.
Oh, wow. I'm going to say no. And I'm going to say no because the longer this is taking, the more I believe that Harbaugh might end up back at Michigan.
Okay.
I think one of the reasons you have 7 NFL teams that haven't made NFL hires and they've all interviewed all the same candidates essentially is because I think Harbaugh is the first domino that has to fall, meaning he's got to decide what he's doing next year for the rest of the dominoes to fall. So, look, I think it's possible, but I think the amount of time that has elapsed since all of these firings have happened, what is it, about a week and a half now, tells me that Michigan wants Harbaugh to stay. And it certainly looks like, Harbaugh, might want to do that as well. And if they can come to an agreement on language that protects him from any NCAA sanction, then I think, I think now more than ever, I wouldn't have said that on last week's show, but I think now there's a good chance that Harbaugh can go back to Michigan. I'm not predicting it, but I'm saying it's certainly a greater chance today than it was a week ago at this time.
Okay, James, Belichick, Harbaugh, and Vrabel, are they all in the NFL next year?
Absolutely. Harbaugh to the Chargers.
Okay, Harbaugh, Chargers. Where's Belichick go? And
do you want him in Atlanta? Because that's where he's going.
Atlanta? Chip, do you think Atlanta hires Belichick? They've interviewed Harbaugh, too.
I thought he was going to Dallas. I thought for sure they were going to fire him, but
too big of personalities there.
I'm going to tell you, I think he either goes to Las Vegas or Atlanta. I think that's one of the reasons. Yeah, I mean, he's not going to go to Carolina. He's not going to go to Washington. He's not going to go to Tennessee, and I don't think he goes to Seattle. And that just leaves, Las Vegas.
Well, there is one more job that could be open.
San Diego.
Nick Sirianni.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Don't forget that the Eagles still could fire Nick Sirianni, and then that is absolutely the best destination for Bill Belichick.
That's exactly right.
He's got a quarterback, an offensive line, even though they might lose Kelsey. But I'm just saying, it's possible.
I think the keeping of McCarthy saves Sirianni. That's just a small prediction there.
You think so? All right. You know what? That's not crazy. That's not a crazy thing.
I think McCarthy being saves Sirianni a little bit. Look, at this point in time, I think they're all three going to be in the NFL. I think Harbaugh's issue with the NCAA is going to be bigger than what it's been quiet here for a little bit. I agree with Chip though. If they because Chip made a great point when he said if they protect him from the NCAA by basically just putting the middle finger to the NCAA is the only way they can do it. Is to do that. So I think there's a strong and remember, he waited almost a week before he started taking interviews. The one and look, I got to say this though. Belichick could end up in Vegas or he could end up in Atlanta. I will say this right now. Antonio Pierce is getting royally screwed. I believe they should have given him either yes or no in Las Vegas right now. I'm a Raiders fan. He's got the team with him. He only had about 5 or 6 games from an absolute disaster of the last couple of 3 years. They look more like a Raiders ball club, hard hitting, going at it. I just think that to me, they're doing him a disservice by holding him out there like they are.
They'll regret hiring Belichick with the Raiders if they don't. Like, I know that sounds crazy because he's the best coach in football history, but I just don't see how they don't match up. Like, he doesn't have the quarterback he wants. It doesn't make any sense.
That's the Achilles heel of Atlanta and Las Vegas when it comes to Belichick. Philadelphia can say if they get rid of Sirianni, Hurts. Whether by the way, we didn't even talk about this. We're going long today. But do y'all get the feeling Hurts has a problem in the locker room?
It looked like it when they were when Goddard was talking to him. But
and also
honestly,
AJ Brown and some others. I don't know what that is.
I don't know if it's Hurts or if it's just the losing. I think
it could be. Yeah, winning cures everything.
It might not just be Hurts. There might be a lot of problems in that locker room.
I agree with you on that one.
To start out the season 10-1 and then do what they did.
That's why people think Sirianni's going to get fired, because if you start off like that, then you go down
I don't disagree.
Absolute rabbit hole of loss and bad football and complaints, and then you got Dom on the sideline, and there's so many different things that he couldn't overcome as a head coach, and that's literally his only job. To make sure that they overcome those obstacles.
Real quick, and this is a sort of an interesting question. Caleb Williams, who I've always said he would need to be a Jordan Love in my opinion. He needs to go to a team and learn, and also to keep his mouth shut. But that's a whole different issue. As far as just play football, I think that's been his focus problem. He's a great athlete. He's a great, but he seems to get distracted. That's what I see in the big game. So when the big games hit, he tightens up because he's expected to live up to these expectations that he's talked about. And he's not been able to do it, especially against a hard-nosed defense. But Caleb Williams has now said he's coming to the NFL. Do y'all think that there was some kind – because he made this comment about a week or two ago. He was really concerned about who Chicago was going to take with that number 1 pick. I think Justin Fields has sort of solidified himself to stay in Chicago, it looks like. Do you think they've gotten sort of wind that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to Chicago, which would free Caleb to go to somebody else? Either one of you, take it.
It's certainly possible, right? Because, look, Caleb Williams' stock was so high at the end of last year that it couldn't get any higher. He was, I don't think a player's stock was, any higher going into his last year than Caleb's was. And it's not quite as high this year. I still think he's a great player, and I think he's going to be a very good NFL quarterback. But he doesn't have the aura around him that he did a year ago. And so, Chicago has options. What a trade they made with Carolina. Holy cow.
Oh, yeah. Carolina's got to be Carolina.
I'm not so sure though, Doug. I'm not so sure that the leadership brass in Chicago is all on the same page, and I don't know that they have made a decision that they are sticking with Justin Fields. I think they probably do. I think I'd probably make that decision if I were them and bring in some pieces. But, man, that's going to be fun to follow because I think they're open for discussions with teams that want to try to make some deals with them.
I think the Carolina deal to Chicago ranks up there as bad as the Julio Jones deal in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw what happened to Atlanta after the Julio Jones deal. It took us about 4 years, to even remotely get back some players in that guard. All right, the leaving question here, James, you got anything on that one?
No, I was just going to say that I think they've been put in an impossible position. I really do, because you're taking a chance on Caleb Williams, who I think most people would agree he could become a perennial Pro Bowler and help you win. But Justin Fields at the end of the season, if he goes somewhere else that uses his talents the right way, you're going to regret that move forever. That's the conundrum they're in. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, we got it. All right. Interestingly enough, let's return to the mecca of college football, which is the SEC. We've talked about Saban being gone last week. I'm going to say it doesn't surprise me the mass exodus out of Alabama. I mean, I saw a sheet today that had the 1-2s depth chart and 1-2-3 depth chart for Alabama's offense and defense at the Rose Bowl January 1st. And if you look at it, there's complete positions that are completely gone. And Auburn's happy about this. But I mean, just completely gone. And recruits, and I'm sure Chip follows this. I do a little bit as well. Kirby's been in the helicopter, and he has been hitting the offense with the Union Grove offensive lineman that had decommitted to Alabama. He's a big old boy too, and several of these others. And I believe you're going to hear before we meet again on Friday. Caleb Downs is going to be in the defensive backfield, I believe, in Georgia. He's from Mill Creek. He's from about Houston. He's about 20 minutes away from the campus where he grew up. He's already had his going away at Alabama. He comes home and finishes there. I could see that happening. I made a comment, and this is why I wanted to sort of the last round here. I made a comment the week or so ago after Saban did what he did, that it was a smart possible political move, or not political move, but a smart player move for him because it gave his players, after the portal had already closed, 30 days so his players to go. One of the things I didn't talk about is it really has been a bad move for Alabama. It was a good move for his players. I get it from Saban there, but really, do you think Saban realized he would lose that many? And DeBoer would be such poor choices at some of his stuff. Because Chip's all over this one. James, give me a quick answer, and we're going to go to Chip on this one because the Auburn is just coming out at this point.
I think I'm going to let you country boys handle this one.
Look, I mean, if you're Alabama, get over it, right? I mean, seriously. I mean, this is what happens when teams switch coaches. And they've had the same coach for 17 years who's delivered them 6 national titles. And, Doug, you're right. But the construct of this football is, let's all be honest with each other. The portal really never closes, right? I mean, it really never does. And so, they got 30 days. I mean, look, just yesterday, Antonio Kaida, cornerback, who was a 4-star recruit out of Anniston, transferred to Auburn from Alabama. It's the first person we've ever gotten from the portal from Alabama. And they've never gotten one from Auburn. I mean, look, I can't tell you how many times we've had head coaching changes. Yes, I can. 3 times since Nick Saban was head coach, and this is what happens. And so there's never a good time, and it's going to happen. And this goes back to what we talked about. As good of a head coach as Caleb DeBoer is, I'm sure he's a great head coach. He's gonna fail in this job because he is succeeding a guy that was there for 17 years in this conference that won 7 or 8 national titles, and he didn't even know where the state of Alabama was. He'd never even been here before he got the job. And so, look, I mean, what you hear is this violin playing, Cry Me a River. Yeah, look, they're going downhill, and it's fun to watch. I wake up every morning wanting to get on the blogs and see how many people Alabama's losing.
I love it. And this is the world. For those of you who are unfortunate enough not to follow SEC football all your life, you don't understand the funny picture of a coach at Union Grove High School, a wrestling coach, who had his picture made with not just Kirby Smart, but Dan Lanning in the same building. You know you're a highly recruited athlete who had committed to Alabama, by the way, when you have Kirby and Dan Lanning in the building at the same time. This is where it's at, folks. A lot to talk about today. We've had a great time. We've discussed politics. We've discussed, coaching, football. We've made our picks. This is time for you. We're glad to have you here on the Doug Collins Podcast. Go to that DougCollinsPodcast.com link. Hit us an email. I've gotten a lot of you out there saying, again, thanks for all the encouragement that you give me, not only to do the show, but to stay in politics, to do everything we've got. As we go here, got a big weekend coming up, got a big one next week. We'll be going into the championship round. So it'll be a NFL championship, AFL championship. So it'll be fun to watch AFC as we go forward. before we get going, final word, James. Final word, James. Final word, Chip.
Go Bills, man. Go Bills. I got go Bills and go Texans this weekend. I'm gonna load up on both of them with the points.
Sorry, boys. It was go Bucks and go 49ers. I thought I had my volume back on. 100% screw the NFC North right now.
We thought you were still, having a purple haze coming through the building there. And
I was actually just trying to write out the word bed. It was still kind of giving me trouble. So.
I love it. All right, folks, you got to hear. My final word is this. Get ready. I've been saying this for a while. New Hampshire. Trump takes New Hampshire. Maybe smaller than definitely what we saw in Iowa, but I believe Trump takes New Hampshire. And within a week to 10 days after that, this primary season is over. Buckle up for the longest general election cycle that this country has ever seen, 2024. We will be back next week on Friday's Finest. Take care.